March 12, 2018, 2:46 a.m. Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, Atlanta. The busiest airport in the United States has gone dark. A cascading grid failure has silenced the runways and blinded the cameras. Emergency lights flicker along empty concourses. Outside, grounded jets glint under sodium lamps. And deep beneath Cargo Bay 17, a man in a gray janitor's uniform pushes a cart toward a restricted door that should be sealed. His name is Owen Talbot. By 3:18 a.m., an armored vault containing $18 million in freshly printed U.S. currency, bound for an overseas flight, is gone. Talbot's badge is found on the floor. His locker is empty. His phone is smashed. He has no ticket, no passport, no trace. A man who cleaned floors for a decade just vanished with more money than most banks hold overnight. Before we dive into the unbelievable story of a night shift janitor at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport who triggered a brief power outage, walked a sealed container holding $18 million straight out of a secure vault, loaded it onto a garbage truck, and vanished without leaving a single trace, smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. Comment below where you're watching from, and tell me, would you have noticed the invisible man cleaning floors while he was stealing a fortune? Hours before the blackout, a man clocks in for the night shift at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. His name is Owen Talbot, 43. No record. For 10 years, he has pushed a mop through the same corridors and tunnels, swiping the same badge past the same beeps, speaking little, watching everything. Talbot was hired on October 5, 2009, by Monarch Facility Services, a contractor on the North Cargo Complex. His route? Concourse T restrooms, Service Tunnel 4, then Bay 1517. He lived alone in a one-bedroom on Riverdale Road. Rent was paid in cash on the first of each month. Co-workers called him polite and quiet. A thermos of black coffee, paperbacks in his locker. Supervisors logged him as reliable. He did not take sick days. On cameras, he moved like background. In 2016, Monarch cut hours and froze benefits. The pension match ended on July 31st. Night workers lost overtime differentials. Talbot's take-home dropped below $500 a week. He did not complain, but his behavior changed. He stayed late off the clock for deep clean, lingering in back corridors after patrols passed. He switched to a later MARTA bus and walked the last mile along Sullivan Road, alone. The airport had grown around him like a machine. Between 2014 and 2017, international cash flights transited weekly through the North Cargo Complex. Sealed pallets moved from armored trucks into climate-controlled vault rooms, logged against airway bills, then flown out on morning departures. Talbot's route brought him past those doors at predictable times. He heard the hydraulic hiss when the locks engaged. He never asked questions. He wrote notes. Folded slips in his wallet listed codes and door labels. V3 Mag, E19, Enmate. On February 2, 2017, he requested a badge access expansion to include waste staging for deep clean. A scheduler approved it. The change let him move through a corridor behind Vault 3 without calling a supervisor. Life outside work left few marks. Receipts show groceries on Old National Highway, work boots from a surplus outlet, prepaid cell refills in cash. In January 2018, he withdrew $200 and bought tools at a discount chain, a voltage tester, insulated gloves, a tool roll. He purchased 3 used rolling bins at a salvage auction. He kept them in a rented 5x10 storage unit on Camp Creek Parkway under the name OT Holdings. There was no sudden debt. What investigators later documented instead was pattern. A man inside a system long enough to learn its rhythms, than to notice its pauses. He mapped underfloor routes used by electricians. He timed the guard rounds on the cargo mezzanine, 17 minutes with a 1-minute gap at the top of the hour. He noted that during nightly generator tests, old doors in Bay 17 clicked twice before sealing. On November 9, 2017, a localized outage darkened Bay 12 for 90 seconds after a breaker trip. Reports show cameras rebooted first, alarms second, and legacy magnetic locks last. Talbot was mopping nearby. He watched a dock agent prop a failing door while maintenance reset the panel. No breach was recorded. By December, Talbot adjusted his cleaning loop to place him beside base 17, between Org 240 and Org 255, when staffing was thinnest and audits least frequent. He set phone alarms to silent vibrations keyed to patrol times. He began carrying a manifest sleeve in his cart with a blank label that read, "Return material, not for manifest." On paper, he remained invisible. In practice, he was rehearsing. With something simpler, something he already knew. Every system, no matter how tight, leaves a gap. It would take him years to map that gap. But standing by the highway shoulder with a trash bag in his hand, Cole Merrick already felt it forming. And once he saw it, he couldn't unsee it. March 1st, 2022, Austin to San Marcos by bus and on foot. Cole Merrick started to treat Tuesdays like a job again. Not paid, just time. Dawn runs on I-35, same white refrigerated trucks, same black Tahoe 2 miles back. He logged mile markers on receipt paper. He wrote the minute brake lights touched at merge points. He watched hands at 10 and 2. He listened to the road like it was a machine he used to service. March 8th, Hays County, 4:26 a.m. He tried a quiet proof with no risk. 2 reflective triangles on the shoulder, spaced by pace count, and a cheap amber flasher set low behind a guardrail. No vest, no man. The target truck eased to the far lane and kept speed. The Tahoe dipped 7 seconds and then returned to pace. He said it out loud so he would remember it later. Signals move drivers, people don't. He underlined the line in his head. March 15th, same window, a different test. He stood 50 yards from the shoulder with a trash bag and did nothing. The truck did not change. The escort did not change. He wrote another line. Presence without props is invisible. It comforted him in a way. It also set the boundary. If he wanted a driver to obey, the road had to look like policy. March 20th, a thrift store manual on refrigerated units gave him a number that mattered. Open doors spike temperature fast. Spikes appear in the data log. Spikes must have a reason. He timed how long a driver could tolerate a stop before the log would force questions. 4 minutes looked safe. 6 did not. The plan in his head hardened around the shorter number. April 5th, 4:19 a.m. He placed 3 cones, not 2, and a homemade placard that read, "Lane sweep ahead" in block letters. The truck moved 1 lane over earlier than before. The Tahoe slowed and then matched pace again. He took it as proof of bundle logic. The more the picture fits rules, the faster the compliance. He still did not step into the lane. He still did not wave an arm. He let tape and light do the talking. Near failure 1 came small and human. April 12th. 4:11 a.m., a county pickup rolled the shoulder slow with a man drinking coffee at the window. The cones were down. The flasher was weak. Cole stood in the ditch like a worker on break, head down, hands on his knees. The pickup drifted on. He added a rule that would not change later. If any uniform slows, the clock dies. Pack and leave. No pride, no explanation. He mapped the escort rhythm. The Tahoe sat 2 miles back on open stretches. In construction, it closed to 1 1/4 and then drifted out again. It never crossed the median. It never touched the shoulder. It rode flow, not enforcement. That told him the window he needed was visual, not legal. A blind curve, 11 seconds long at 58 miles per hour. Mid-April. He bought a torn reflective vest for $5 at a pawn shop and a used amber beacon for $12. The beacon's wire flickered. He crimped it with pliers and wrapped it with tape. He put the vest on in a shelter bathroom and watched the tape flash in dim light. In low light, the costume read as official enough. He did not like the word costume. He preferred procedure. The road believed procedure. April 19th, 4:28 a.m. He tested tone without a target. He stood by the shoulder with a clipboard and counted breaths. He practiced 4 short lines under the noise of trucks. Quick stop. Lane debris ahead. 4 minutes. Back on by 05. He discovered what he already knew from warehouse nights. The cadence mattered more than the words. Flat working man calm moved faster than authority. Near failure 2 arrived as a reminder that equipment is part of picture. April 26. The beacon died mid-pass. He had nothing to replace it with. A random truck flashed high beams and moved wide anyway, but he felt the hollow in his stomach. He wrote one word on scrap paper and circled it 3 times. Redundancy. He needed a place that would take weight and silence. Late April, south of Lockhart, he walked County Road 226 alone. An empty grain silo stood behind a fence line. Dry floor, no cameras, no houses close. A hinge that screamed once and could be oiled. He counted steps from the road to the inner room, 48, then 12 more. Numbers steady enough to carry in the dark. May 3rd. The routine slipped. Night work near mile 203 pushed the truck 15 minutes late. The Tahoe closed, then fell back. He widened his window in his notes, 418 to 446. More risk and also more cover. He adjusted his map by hand. He did not like how easily the line moved. He accepted it. The escort was still riding rhythm, not the shoulder. The blind curve still created 11 seconds of silence. May 10th. McAllen Public Library. He still owned parts from a portable breaker rig, an emergency override unit designed to test circuit loads, and he modified it to fit inside the hollow frame of a janitor's floor buffer. A hidden switch on the handle would trip the local grid in Cargo Bay 17 without raising alarms elsewhere. Talbot's part was everything else. Timing, routes, exits, and above all, invisibility. They rehearsed each detail like clockwork. On March 3rd at 02:48 a.m., Talbot followed a guards patrol through Bay 17 with a stopwatch hidden in his pocket. He recorded every turn, every pause, every glance at the monitor panel. The pattern matched what he had mapped. 17 minutes between sweeps, with a 1-minute handover when the corridor was empty. That was the window. On March 5th, McKinney joined Talbot during the shift change, posing as a contractor reviewing a flickering panel. Together, they timed how long the old magnetic locks took to re-engage after a minor power dip. The result, 2 minutes and 11 seconds before the system sealed. But even the best-laid plans cracked under reality. The first near failure came on March 6th, when Fletcher's test manifest, a dummy return order for a non-existent waste crate, was flagged by a freight clerk who noticed an unfamiliar disposal code. Fletcher acted fast, deleting the entry before escalation and claiming it was a training test. The file vanished from the system, but so did her confidence. They rewrote the manifest using authentic phrasing from archived orders, copying internal shorthand that only staff would recognize. The second near failure came 2 nights later. McKinney tested the modified breaker rig in an empty maintenance corridor. The surge lasted longer than expected, and a motion sensor camera rebooted mid-cycle, triggering a silent diagnostic alert. Security dispatched a technician to inspect the line at 4:12 a.m. Talbot happened to be on shift and overheard the call. They dismantled the rig and moved it to a new hiding spot hours before the inspection team arrived. Their report filed the next morning concluded the fault was environmental. By March 8th, the pieces were falling into place. Talbot had memorized a 24-step sequence for the operation, each step paired with a timestamp. At 02:46, the breaker rig would trigger the localized outage. By 02:48, Vault 3's locks would default to mechanical override. By 02:50, the $18 million pallet would be broken into 3 smaller loads and sealed inside a disguised waste container. At 02:52, Talbot would swipe through service hatch E19, bypassing biometric checks under emergency mode. At 03:03, the container would be loaded onto a cleaning truck registered for overnight waste removal. At 03:24, the truck would exit through Gate 7 with a standard clearance code. Every minute was accounted for. There was still one problem: the backup power system. On March 9th, while reviewing maintenance logs Fletcher had acquired, Talbot noticed an annotation that made him pause. Cargo Bay 17 shared a generator line with Bay 15, an older section rewired decades earlier. He highlighted it but pushed the thought aside. The load test suggested the generator would not engage during a localized trip. It seemed irrelevant, and time was running out. The final rehearsal happened on March 10th. Talbot walked the full route in uniform, pushing an empty janitor's cart. McKinney followed 20 meters behind, with a voltmeter disguised as a clipboard, checking panel access points. Fletcher texted them simulated manifest updates from a burner phone. At 02:52, Talbot swiped into service hatch E19, a dry run of the crucial moment. No alarms, no questions. Cameras showed nothing unusual. The test ended in silence. The third near failure came that same night. A new night shift supervisor, Elena Ruiz, decided to conduct unscheduled patrols after a training seminar on insider threats. At 3 minutes after Talbot's rehearsal ended, Ruiz appeared in Corridor C, a zone normally unpatrolled at that hour. Had the test run lasted just 5 minutes longer, she might have walked directly into it. Talbot noted her route and shifted the planned timeline forward by 6 minutes. By March 11th, the plan was final. Fletcher purchased 2 prepaid phones and set one to auto-delete messages every 12 hours. McKinney secured 2 false contractor badges dated February 2016, discarded during an old renovation. Talbot rented a self-storage locker under a false name near Forest Park MARTA station, where they stashed a decoy waste container to swap after the operation. If something went wrong, it would buy them precious minutes before anyone realized the real container was missing. The hours before the blackout passed quietly. Talbot worked his normal Sunday shift, cleaned concourse tea, ate a sandwich from a vending machine, and clocked out at 23:58. Security logs show nothing unusual. Cameras catch him walking down a service tunnel alone, pushing a gray janitor's cart. He parked the truck in a storage yard off FM 1327 where Cash rented spaces by the week. He paid for 2 weeks under a first name, no contract. The gate camera caught the truck at 12:11 p.m. A man in a booth wrote E350 white on a clipboard. Late May turned into tasks. The plan left the paper and became parts. Team assembly was not an invitation. It was observation. He watched for behavior he could trust. No sales pitch. No talk of money up front. May 30th, FM 1327, 7:12 p.m. A short white van parked near the gate. A woman in a gray t-shirt pulled a serpentine belt on an old Chevy in 12 minutes. Tools laid out in a grid on a rag. No wasted steps. She wiped her hands, packed the bins, and left the space cleaner than she found it. A paper cup from a vending machine sat on her bumper with T. Granger, written in marker. Cole noted the name and the time. May 31st. Ben White Day Labor Lot. 6:10 a.m. A small conflict at the curb. A contractor mixed names. 2 men argued. One man stepped between them and said, "Tomorrow, 6:05." And the argument ended. He walked away without looking back. Later, Cole saw him guide a car around a blocked lane with a single hand motion. Calm, no voice. In a worn wallet, a faded CDL card. Name, O. Talbot. First contacts were tasks, not confessions. June 1st, FM 1327, 7:32 p.m. He flagged the newly bought service truck by cracking the roof beacon wire at the crimp and waited. The same woman stopped her van without being asked. She opened the dash, found the loose wire, crimped it, tied it with cloth tape so it would not shake loose again, and refused a written receipt. He placed $60 cash on the fender. She left it, then picked it up without a word. Mark 1, fast, quiet, standard driven. June 1st, 9:05 p.m., a frontage road loop. The same man in the worn wallet took $40 to follow at distance in a sedan and respond to a single hazard flash. He matched speed, held space, and killed his lights at the signal without touching the brake. Mark 2 understands distance and silent cues. June 2nd, he set a rule with no reason given. No phones for 48 hours. The woman put her smartphone in a metal box labeled 1012 bolts. The man showed a flip phone, removed the battery, and pocketed the parts. No questions. Mark 3, rule compliance without story. Only after 3 marks he spoke a number. 4 minutes. Not the money, not the cargo, a number and a word. Stop. June 2nd, 8:12 p.m. South Congress behind a tire shop. He laid out the rules before the plan. No weapons, no shouting, no phones on the night. If law slows near you, you are a statue. If any step crosses 5 minutes, the job dies. If anyone argues a rule, the job dies. 2 nods, no handshake, no names repeated. The work could begin. June 3rd, storage yard off FM 1327, 11:40 a.m. The AT&T E350 from Lot 62 sat under a dead light. The receipt with the auction stamp and $2,400 amount went into a folded plastic sleeve under the seat. That paper would become a breadcrumb later. Tessa Granger opened the hood. Alternator whine, belt glazed, battery strong. She swapped the belt in 12 minutes with her own tools. She taped 2 spare fuses to the dash with the label spare. She checked hazards, brake lights, and the beacon wire a second time. She said one sentence, "Never park nose in, always point out." June 3rd, day labor lot after sunrise. Owen Talbot watched the truck at idle. He listened to the fan clutch. He looked at tire wear. He shook the ladder rack. He tightened a loose strap. He wiped the plate bolts and hinge pins with a rag so they would not shine mismatch. He took a quick VIN photo on his phone to cross a part and deleted it. The yard's old DVR recorded his face and the truck and would hold the file for 19 days. No one knew yet. June 4th, Riverside Branch Library. 1:23 p.m. The plan needed paper pictures. Cole printed 2 dot-style door decals. Lane sweep. District 14 in block letters. And a temporary maintenance dash placard. The printer kept an internal job log with card number and time. He cut the decals with a library scissors and left. The log stayed. June 4th, dusk. The decals went on straight, adhesive edges pressed flat with a rag. The ghost AT&T globe still showed under the paint. From 10 meters, the truck read as official enough to make a driver obey. That was the only aim. June 5th, back lot behind the tire shop. 9:06 p.m. Kit build. Granger filled a crate. Zip tie gun, ties in 3 sizes, side cutters, 3 triangles, 6 cones, 2 amber flashers, roof and low, hand light, nitrile gloves, a cheap stopwatch. She closed the lid and wrote with a marker in order. Hazards, beacon, triangles, cones, script, load. 6 words that would not bend under stress. June 5th. The split was set at a church kitchen table. Cole 60, Tessa 20, Owen 20. If the stop took more than 5 minutes, nobody got $1. If a rule broke, the sheet died. No photos, no copies. Cash later or nothing. June 6th. Exit 207, Hayes County. The container sagged a millimeter and then held. His hands shook, but his steps didn't. Down the corridor, McKinney counted the kind of seconds men count when they have built their own margin of error. Cameras on this circuit would be coming back any moment. He unplugged the dummy meter, reseated the cover, and let his shoulders settle as if a small problem had been solved. He walked away at the boring speed of honest work. In the help desk queue, the false removal order rolled to the next line item, which no one would open until after 3. A dome camera woke early on a linked circuit. A quirk Talbot had noted in a yellowed binder and then dismissed. Its iris opened and took a single usable frame. A gray sleeve, the edge of a dark lid, a glint of a handle. The angle was wrong and the light was low. Nobody saw it live. Later, an analyst would freeze the smear and draw a red circle around the shape of a bin wheel, as if certainty could be sketched in the dark. Talbot pulled the vault door back to its seat and felt the magnet coil whisper, alive inside the jam. He moved. The bin rattled once at an expansion joint. He leaned a hip into the side to stop the noise. At the junction, he turned left, past a utility closet he had already unlocked with a copy key, and reached service hatch E19. The badge reader stared at him with a dark LED. In emergency mode, the hatch ignored biometrics for egress. He slid his badge, felt for the soft mechanical click, and shouldered the door open. The hinge complained. He quieted it with his palm against the metal. He did not look back. The stairwell down to the utility tunnel pitched gently enough to roll, but a load like this complained at every seam. Talbot walked with his feet wide and his knees bent, hand over hand on the handle, controlling descent one shallow drop at a time. The air smelled like old coolant and dust. Rain ticked faintly on sheet metal somewhere above. In that underworld of pipes and cable trays, the airport's clean public face ended, and its working gut began. There were no cameras here. There never had been a reason to watch a corridor built for valves and power feeds. Boots struck metal at the far end. 2 firefighters in training vests crossed toward a hydrant, laughing at something on a phone. Talbot froze in a pose any worker understands, a man dealing with a jam. 1 foot braced against a wheel, 1 hand on the lid, his face down to the concrete in a way that says, "I was told to do this, and I will do it." The pair passed within 20 paces, nodded without seeing him, and swung through a door that hissed shut. Silence returned as a physical thing. Above, as systems recovered, the shared generator on Bay 15 pushed a surge across a coupling that shouldn't have been coupled. Somewhere up there, a corridor camera came back alive a half-beat earlier than expected and caught a sliver of motion that an investigator would later call consistent with the passage of a rolling container. Down here it remained dim and private. Talbot nudged the bin forward, followed the blue-painted valve with a 1998 stencil, and steered toward the access where the loop road came closest to the service core. A white cleaning truck idled behind a roll-up door with an orange beacon that flickered instead of spinning. The subcontractor logo on the door had bled into the paint. The driver kept both hands on the wheel and his eyes straight ahead. He had been told the load would smell and to expect extra bags on top. He had been told to wait until he heard 4 knocks in a pattern, 2 and 2. He had been told there would be $40,000 where he could find it if he said nothing to anyone a week later. He had signed nothing because this job did not issue paper. Talbot raised the roll-up in stages. Rain curtained the opening. He tapped the truck's side panel. 2 knocks, a breath, 2 more. The driver's head moved a fraction. The bin came up wheel by wheel, using the lip as a fulcrum, the kind of lift that makes the world narrow to breath and leverage. Talbot strapped it to the bed and threw 3 heavy black contractor bags on top. Real waste, soaked and heavy. The smell loudly, convincingly true. He dropped the door, flicked the latch to manual, and walked around to the passenger side. He didn't climb in. He did nothing anyone later could claim looked like riding in a truck that would leave with money. He set the mop back into the buffer, coiled the dummy cord, wiped rain off the tape switch, and pushed the cart toward a janitor closet 2 bays away, the one he had opened earlier for exactly this moment. The airport resumed its hum in small pieces. Patrols flipped. A supervisor radioed a reminder about a training module nobody wanted to complete. The help desk inbox aged the RME19 note into a green-lighted task that felt like permission to no one in particular. Systems finished rebooting, and emergencies became paperwork. 2:50 a.m., transfer window. He had noticed fresh seals on rear latches. He had heard a faint metal click under a pallet during a seal check at the McAllen yard. He did not tie paper, tape, and sound into a single risk. It would matter later. June 13th, 9:06 a.m. He bought a prepaid flip with minutes and no contacts. He put it in the glove box as a dead man aboard. If it rang once, they would walk from everything. It did not ring. June 13th, 6:27 p.m., a car wash bay served as the last table. Tessa taped a spare fuse to the dash. Owen checked the spare tire and the jack. Cole sorted the crate to match the lid order. Hazards, beacon, triangles, cones, script, load. He said the 6 words like a metronome. June 13th, exit 207, 11:18 p.m., final recon. No wind, no DPS. The curve still granted 11 seconds. Owen stood at the sight point and counted to himself. Tessa placed the first cone on the start rock and lined the others by pace. Cole spoke the 4 lines once into the dark. The night felt like a machine he could service. June 14th, 12:02 a.m. The kit lay across the front seat in a single layer. Zip ties, extra flasher, clipboard, 4 lines on a torn page. Vest folded so the tape would catch any headlight. Fuel topped. Map under the visor with 4 marks. Exit 207. Feeder. Curve. Silo. 2:04 a.m. They slid into position on the feeder with the engine off. The road kept its pulse. Northbound diesels. A southbound repair truck. A police cruiser on the far lanes that never looked over. They did not speak. They let the plan sit. 2:31 a.m. Owen used the ditch and came back. Flat palm. Clear. Tessa kept both hands on the wheel at 10 and 2. Cole held the clipboard to his chest and listened to his breath slow. 2:47 a.m. A pickup with tools idled a quarter mile behind them for 90 seconds and left. Not a patrol. They did nothing. The picture stayed clean. 3:19 a.m. The first triangle went down on the start rock. Tessa walked 13 paces and set the second. Owen placed the third at the far mark. Beacon up. Hazards on. The door decals caught the low light. Lane sweep. District 14. Vest on, clipboard up. Procedure, not people. 3:27 a.m. A random reefer slowed, changed lanes, lifted a hand, and went on. The picture worked on strangers. It would work on the target, unless the cargo carried its own rule. 3:41 a.m. Silence. The curve a dark mouth. 11 seconds of blind. The Tahoe 2 miles back on schedule. Cole repeated the 4 lines in his head. Quick stop. Lane debris ahead. 4 minutes. Back on by 05. 3:50 a.m. A white refrigerated truck in the right plate format took the on-ramp and held 58. Marker lights blinked in a cadence he knew. Owen said, "That's them." Tessa said nothing. She set her left foot exactly where she had set it the night before. 3:57 a.m. North Dallas. A rented room, a prepaid tracking phone in a drawer. A man scrolled soccer clips and waited for a dot to move. It always moved on Tuesdays. The drawer would light in minutes. He knew dots. He did not know names. 4:07 a.m. A DPS unit cut north in the far lanes. No brake tap. No drift. Statues until law is gone. They were statues. 4:10 a.m. The truck was within 200 meters. Cole raised the clipboard to chest height so the reflective tape would flash without a wave. He did not show a palm. He did not step into the lane. Tape and light would speak. 4:11 a.m. Brake lights touched. Air hissed. The trailer eased right, steady, like every controlled stop. The window opened. 4 minutes to live inside the log. 11 seconds to vanish from the Tahoe. 4:12 a.m. The white refrigerated truck slowed at exit 207 and eased onto the shoulder. Air hissed. Brake lights held. The blind curve shielded the scene from the black Tahoe 2 miles back. Cole Merrick stood at the cone line. Vest on, clipboard up, voice flat. Quick stop. Lane debris ahead. 4 minutes. Back on by 05. Owen Talbot moved to the passenger door. Palm to palm. No grabbing, no shout. He turned his body toward the lane and sat the driver on the grass, facing away from traffic. A single tie. Hands secure. The man watched the road and thought about temperature. Tessa Granger swung the rear doors. Cold air pushed out. Stacked inside, 24 duffel bags, each heavy with vacuum-sealed bricks, each bag marked with a small token number. She cut a strap, slid the first bag to the floor. Cole lifted. Owen carried. The service truck took the weight in a clean rhythm. Door to ground, ground to hands, hands to box. No talking. No change in posture. The road saw tape, cones, triangles, a man with a clipboard. It read policy, not panic. 4:13. A southbound sedan drifted past. No horn. The roof beacon washed the scene. The door decals, lane sweep. District 14 held their story. The driver in the reefer glanced at his panel. Temperature ticked a point high. The spike would log. A short spike could be explained. The low flasher under the bumper died. Tessa didn't look down. The roof light held, and that was what the road trusted. A strap snagged on a pallet nail. Side cutters. 8 silent seconds. The chain resumed. Bag 8, bag 9, bag 10. The clipboard stayed high for tape to catch headlamps. Cole repeated the second line once. Level and calm. 4 minutes! Far ahead, the Tahoe entered the curve and lost direct sight. It rode flow, not shoulders. Its window, like his, was time. 4:15. Half the bags were already in the service truck. Heat bled from the reefer. Steam flashed in the handlight. Owen returned from the grass and took 2 at a time when he could. The driver sat still, wrists bound, eyes on the ditch. He did not plead. He did not resist. He was running his own clock. Get back on the road before the log tells a story he cannot defend. A DPS unit crossed north in the far lanes. No drift, no brake tap. Statues until law is gone. The beacon kept its slow pulse. The cones stayed clean on gravel. A small rock at the first triangle, their start mark, hadn't shifted. 4:16, 4:17. The bags kept moving. One rubber band snapped inside a sack. The shape held. Cole flattened the bag with his forearm and passed it up. Tessa checked the floor for loose wrap, for a drop knife, for anything that would become evidence. Nothing left behind. The chain continued. Around 4:18, the last duffel came out. Tessa pressed the rear latch, then touched the tamper tape on instinct. Owen clipped the tie at the driver's wrists and put the keys in his hand. Calm tone. Back on in a minute. The driver nodded once and looked at the panel again. Cole returned to the cone line, clipboard to chest, the picture restored to how it began. 4:19. The reefer pulled away. No horn, no complaint, just a diesel note returning to load. The temperature bump on the internal log would read as brief. Road work would fit. Tessa folded the vest she wasn't wearing, killed the beacon, pulled triangles and cones in order, and set them in the crate. The start rock kicked aside under her heel. Owen stepped to the edge and watched the merge. Cole waited one beat, scanned the feeder, and climbed in. The service truck rolled out clean, hazards off as it joined traffic. The picture on the shoulder vanished. They took FM 621. No interstate cameras, no ramp patrols. Back roads in a northeasterly line. The right rear tires still rode firm. Earlier, Tessa had chalked 34 psi on the inside of the windshield and kept it there with a glance. Owen, in the shadow sedan 90 seconds behind, held distance without lights unless he needed them. No radios. Hand signals in mirrors only. By 4:21 to 4:23, the Tahoe cleared the curve and saw nothing that justified a call. Just clean gravel and faint marks where cones had stood. It continued north to look for trouble ahead, not behind. Routine guided it onward. They flowed past dark fields and a sleeping subdivision. Mailbox glass, a chrome bumper at a farm gate, a kitchen window. Cole scanned for any reflection that meant a watcher. Nothing returned. The clipboard sat against his chest like a shield. The green torn page with 4 lines was folded under it, untouched now that the lines had done their work. A pickup with tools came up, then turned away down a county track. Owen watched it in his mirror and held position. No drift, no chase. Around 4:30 or 4:40, in Dallas, a prepaid tracking phone woke in a drawer and started to blink. The first ping sat near the shoulder south of San Marcos. A later ping showed the dot moving off the interstate onto rural roads. On those roads, time was elastic. A dot could be behind a barn, inside a shed, under trees. A dot could be late without meaning. The drawer lit again. The man who watched dots did not call police. He called men he knew. Closer to 5-1s, a low bridge over a shallow river. The service truck kept straight, centered. No sway, no brake tap on the exit. Shadows of oak and cedar folded in and out of the headlamps. Cole stayed low in the seat. Owen crossed, then returned to the lane behind them and made a long gap look ordinary. 5:03. A gas station camera at the edge of Luling caught 3 frames as the box truck eased past the lot. The image was soft. The partial plate flared in glass. The door decal half lit. The manager counted cash and didn't look at the monitor. Fields widened, houses thinned. A barn lamp burned in the distance. They dropped to a speed that looked like a contractor's night run, not a rush to hide stolen weight. No one spoke. 5:31, Lockhart, County Road 226. The silo stood where Cole had left it. No porch lights nearby, no dogs, no motion. Tessa backed the service truck into the shadow, nose pointed out. Owen parked across the narrow lane in the sedan, a sleeper's posture, hood cooling. Cole carried the crate inside the door, laid tools in a straight line on the floor, and looked once at the inner room to confirm it still took his steps. 48:12. The hinge, oiled days earlier, opened without a scream. Dust hung in air. Steel drums waited in a row. Feed sacks leaned against the wall. This was the part that left no story if it went right. Bag 1 moved, truck to floor to drum. Lid on, sacks over the lid. Bag 2, bag 3. They did not cut seals. They did not count. They did not look inside a single bag. A chain again. Weight, placement, cover. By 5:40, Owen stepped to the road and back in a slow loop. He listened for tires on gravel, for an engine in the distance. Nothing. He returned to the line without words. Tessa wiped the door handle with the nitrile glove she would throw away later. The right rear tires still felt solid. The chalked 34 PSA stayed on the glass. The number had done its one job already. Dust settled on boots, forearms wet with sweat. The inner room grew warm and stale. Cole changed his grip on the 20-pound sacks to lift with less noise. The lids seated with a dull ring. Sacks fell over the metal and made it disappear. A little after 6 or 1, the small device glued under a pallet inside one bag kept sending its pings. The building muffled them. The drum killed them. By 6:24, the dot on the distant screen would freeze south of Lockhart. Here, no screen spoke. Only the scrape of a bag, the thud of a lid, the thin breath of 3 people working on a schedule they could feel more than see. A pickup rolled slowly at the far end of County Road 226 and then stopped. A man inside looked down at a phone, turned the map, and rolled on. He did not look toward the silo. Owen watched the taillights fade and said nothing. The last bag dropped, lid down, sacks over. Cole scanned the floor for wrap, tape tails, a cut glove, a dropped tool. Clean. He closed the inner door, then the outer. The oiled hinge gave only a whisper. The field kept its night sound. The air outside felt wider. No celebration, just procedure. They split the way they had planned. Tessa took the service truck south to a storage yard that would open at 8. Owen turned the sedan toward side roads that would take him west and then north, away from the interstate. Cole walked 2 blocks to a gas station on San Antonio Street, bought a coffee with coins, and stood by the ice freezer while morning crept in. By sunrise, the roads looked ordinary again. The cone feet had left faint circles in gravel. The start rock lay kicked from its line. The shoulder at exit 207 showed nothing you could point to without a story to tie it together. The silo's door held. The drums did not speak. They did not count. They did not open. They did not photograph. They did not talk about what would come next. The rule held: no plans near the stash, no calls, no names. Cole Merrick stepped onto a city bus as people going to work climbed aboard with him. He took the back seat and faced the window. Cole Merrick boarded a bus that morning and vanished. June 14, 2022. San Antonio. A duty agent at DEA opened a new case file, HX 2315, hollow freight. The trigger was small but unusual. A money convoy had gone off pattern. A tracker ping had shifted onto rural roads, then died south of Lockhart at 6:24 a.m. No call came from the owners. Cartel Cash does not report theft. In the following days, investigators built the trail piece by piece. At the Bexar County Fleet Auction, they found records of a decommissioned AT&T truck. Lot 62 sold for $20,400 to a man who gave only the name Cole. Cameras caught his figure and walk. A storage yard log confirmed the truck's entry on May 28th. A library print record showed decals made on June 4th. A Luling store camera captured the same truck sliding past just after the heist. A tow yard Facebook post revealed part of the plate. A junkyard DVR frame matched a former CDL driver later identified as Owen Talbot. Slowly, a picture formed. On June 24th, DEA and DPS raided an abandoned grain silo on County Road 226. Inside, they found steel drums covered with feed sacks, all empty. On the floor were 3 small tape tails, a cut zip tie-in, and drag marks where weight had once been. A second path through the grass suggested a trailer could have backed in unseen. A neighbor recalled a flatbed with hay bales days earlier. It could have carried the drums out before dawn. The investigators concluded that the cache likely left the site within 48 hours of the theft, broken down into smaller loads and moved again by road. No single camera saw the transfer. No official witness existed. The system Cole had used, ordinary appearances, short windows, strict timing, now worked for him. Routine erased the extraordinary. By the end of June, sealed complaints named Talbot and Tessa Granger, believed to be accomplices. Neither was located. The stolen E350 sat untouched behind a chain-link fence. The final lead was a city bus camera from June 14th, showing a thin man boarding with coins and taking the back seat. Investigators labeled the still possible ID, Cole. The file ended where the trail did. No arrests, no recovery, no victim complaint. Just fragments, a stone from exit 207, a wax pencil circle on a windshield, a crate marked hazards, beacon, triangles, cones, script, load, and $12 million that vanished without a trace.